Well, hello there. It's Chris Dorris here, and I welcome you, hopefully back to the Entheos Academy for Optimal Living, and I appreciate your visiting my course, which today is entitled How to Awaken Your Spirit. And what I mean by that is how to wake up, okay? How to free yourself from the conditioning of your past that would have you experience reality in any other way than joyously or perfectly. Awakening spirit means heightening consciousness. And that is actually the purpose of my life, is to contribute in as big a way as I can to heightening the collective consciousness of the planet. Which is why I'm so in love with the Entheos Academy and the movement and what they're up to. You know, when I'm describing to people what the Academy is about, I say they're popularizing developing your spirit. They're making spiritual development, personal development, heightening consciousness, awakening. They're making it cool, right? A lot of the thought leaders on the planet today are in agreement that the fastest growing culture, and this is really fascinating, the fastest growing population or culture on the planet are referred to as the conscious creatives, and that's you, right? By virtue of you even listening to this, by you knowing what Entheos is, by joining the Academy and investing your time. Here's 30 minutes of your life that you're spending listening to this guy talk about heightening consciousness. That can only mean one thing: that you're in that culture of conscious creatives. So what we're doing is we're approaching what Malcolm Gladwell refers to as the tipping point, where developing your spirit is going to go viral, right? And it's like all the cool people are doing it, like everybody's doing it, right? You're not going to want to be one of the people who ain't involved in that program, right? And that's what we're reaching. So what we're doing here, and what this course today is about accelerating the rate at which we approach that tipping point. Okay, so people like you and me can, what we're doing, right, simply through the way that we're being, right, we're modeling for the world that's not just a cool thing to do. Well, it is a cool thing to be involved in. It's developing your spirit, heightening your consciousness, acknowledging that you're a spiritual being having a human experience. We're modeling that for the world. We're inviting people, right, to play along, right, to enter the game of freeing yourself from the conditioning of your past that would have you struggle, the conditioning of your past that would have you suffer, all the senseless suffering, the conditioning of your past that would have you settle for less than a miraculous life. And that's what this is all about. That's what awakening spirit is. So I thank you and I congratulate you for being involved in that. And I thank you for modeling that for the world, because your choice on being that person has the world be better for me. So gracias. All right, let's jump in. Okay, the 10 big ideas are organized today into an acronym, which is BE, in spirit, which happens to be 10 letters. So those will be our 10 ideas, BE, and so on. So the first big idea on how to awaken spirit, the letter B, is being. Okay, simply being. We don't have to do anything in order to create joy. When I am able to get out of the stories or the thoughts, the noise in my head, and when I'm silent-minded, or simply being in this moment without interpretations, without judgments, without thoughts, all there is joy, right? Which is really quite beautiful. So over time, if you listen to my courses, there will probably never be one of the courses here of mine where I don't multiple times refer to the conditioning of your past. I think I've probably already said it 4 or 5 times now already in like 5 minutes. That's the ultimate game, okay, of life, is to free up ourselves, is to awaken, is to shine light upon, right, the unconscious, right? The lessons that we've learned along the way that don't serve us, okay? It's those stories, the noise that we play in our minds, like entertaining the possibility that under some set of circumstances, I might not be okay. Like, oh my God, if I lose my job, or if I don't get this new client, or if I don't get that speaking gig, oh my God, I won't be all right. and all the anxiety that comes along with that little story. When I can get out of my stories and simply be, the world is simply pure bliss. So that's cool to keep in mind, is that I don't have to do any work to create joy or bliss. In fact, it's the opposite. I just stop doing any work, like in my head, and there it is. We exist perpetually in joy. So if I can shut up, then I can simply experience that and be in that. Okay, big idea number 2, the letter E, enlighten up. All right, I'm playing with the phrase lighten up, which I really love. So if someone asks me, hey, CD, what's your purpose in life? I'll say to them to bring lightness of being to the planet. Lightness of being. There's this great story I learned from Dr. David Simon, who's the co-founder of the Chopra Institute. Co-founded it, of course, with Deepak Chopra. Easily the best storyteller I've ever met, and it's just the dude he's like a butterfly, so light. The way he just walks through life, almost like on a cloud. And he told this little parable. It's from Egyptian mythology, which is that when you die, your heart is weighed on one of those scales, the lawyer scale with the 2 plates. Your heart is weighed against the weight of a feather, and if your heart is lighter than the feather of the bird, then you're free to go off and experience all the miraculousness and the magic of the universe, right? In non-local or in non-physical form. Okay, and then if on the other hand, your heart is actually heavier than the feather of the bird, then you need to go back and get a do-over in life and learn to lighten up. All right? So when I was studying in India at a place called the Oneness University, there's all these little teachers, right? And I say little because they actually are pretty little, but well, not all of them, but they're young. They're almost like little kids. They're in their early 20s, and these dosagis, they're called dosagis. They're the teachers, the oneness guides, the ones who facilitate your classes throughout the day, and then come visit you at night and have really amazing conversations about what you learned and what you experienced. There were 2 really popular phrases that the dosagis would always say throughout the experience. The first most popular is, "What could ever be wrong with your truth? What could ever be wrong with your truth?" Right, which just has you know that you're perfect. You're an expression of divine grace in human form. But the second one is the relevant one. The second most popular phrase that they would say throughout this experience is, "Stop taking yourself so seriously." And they would always say these things while they're laughing, because they're all so light. They're such lighthearted people. They've spent the majority of their lives in this practice, in the practice of awakening spirit. Because the place I'm referring to, which is the Oneness University, actually started as a school. So many of these dosagis, or teachers now, actually started in that place when they were kids, and it was a school, and it's just grown enormously. You should check it out. Look at it. Just Google it, and it's fascinating. It's become a city now. It started as a little kids' school. Now it's a city. So these young people have spent the vast majority of their lives investing in awakening spirit, and they have this lightness of being. I promise you, just being with them has you be lighter, right? So lightness of being, lighten up. Before we move on to the third big idea, I just want to comment that when I choose lightness of being, right? When I choose to feel lighthearted, what I'm doing is I'm instructing my brain to actually release chemicals, neurotransmitters, like serotonin and dopamine, to be specific, which are the on switches for all creativity and learning centers of the brain. So not only when I make the choice to be lighthearted, which is to feel great, right, to feel worry-free, not only do I feel amazing, but that actually maximizes the likelihood of me being amazing at whatever, at anything, in business, in sports, in relationship, So it's a great combination. The better I feel, the better I am. So choose lightness. Okay, big idea number 3 is the letter is I, right? Be in spirit. So it's Isness. 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 The business of Isness. That's fun. So one of my most favorite mantras is ain't bad, just is. I think it was Shakespeare who said, nothing good or bad happens until you think it's so. It just is, right? Everything just is. There are no problems. Here's another one of my favorite mantras. There are no problems in the universe. The only problem is the way I think about it, right? Or the way I interpret it. So isness, everything just is. So the conditioning of our past, there it is again, would have us often interpret reality in a way that wouldn't have it just be is. Like, this is blue. This just is blue. I'm not pumped about it. I'm not pissed about it. It just is, right? And that's how everything is until I story it. If I go, oh my God, that's amazing. That's an amazing color blue. So that's an interpretation that would have me feel lighthearted, to have me feel cool, or have me feel good. This damn thing's run out of ink. This sucks. That's an interpretation that would have me feel unpleasant. So this pen isn't good or bad, right? It just is. And that's the same for everything until I put, so like worst case scenario, that's pretty cool. The worst case scenario about life, about reality, is that it just is. And it can only get better from that. The only reason that I would interpret anything worse than isness is because of the conditioning of my past, which is why we're awakening to spirit, so we can free ourselves up from that. Alrighty, big idea number 4. I couldn't come up with a word that began with N. So I'm just going to take some like academic liberty here, all right, and put a little I in front of it. So we'll have the 4th big idea be inner world creates the outer world. Okay, so that's a take on another one of my favorite mantras, which is the outer world is a reflection of the inner world. The outer world is a reflection of the inner world. In other words, what I have going on in my life is the direct result of what I've got going on in my mind. If I have chaos in my life, it can only be because I'm thinking chaotically. My inner world is chaotic as well. That can be the only truth, right? If I have abundance in my life, it's because I'm using my mind abundantly. Or my inner world is operating in a state of abundance, and the abundant mentality. If I have both, then I'm doing both, and that's probably the case for most of us. Is we're vacillating back and forth between the light and the dark. But it's really valuable to know that we're creating it all. So whatever is in my life, and this is pure ownership. Okay, this is the definition of the owner, the opposite of the victim mentality. Whatever I've got going on in my life, I've co-created, and it's the result of how I'm using my mind, or what the climate is in the inner world, which I have the right and privilege and ability to alter in every moment of my life. So pay attention to the inner world. Okay, big idea number 5, the letter S, first letter in the word spirit, is synchronicity. We'll have that stand for synchronicity. Everything in the universe is synchronized. This stuff is fascinating. I think it was Carl Jung who coined the term synchronicity. I hope it was, because he's my favorite of all the psychologists in history, although he was actually a psychiatrist. But an interesting story, Einstein, as he was nearing the end of his life, he intuitively knew that something was flawed with his relativity theory. And he didn't live long enough to discover it, but he certainly left enough clues behind for his successors to figure it out. And the flaw was this. The flaw was in the statement that nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. That nothing travels faster than the speed of light. The reason that that's flawed is inherent within that is an assumption. The assumption that everything travels. Information does not travel. Information simply is. So I'll explain that. They've done some interesting experiments. This is a little weird, but it conveys the point. They get a guy and they get a sample of his sperm cells, and they put them in a lab in LA. And I guess they put them hook it up to some device, like some petri dish or whatever, and they hook it up to a machine that measures the electrical activity of these living cells. Okay, now they send the dude over to Amsterdam, okay, across the world, and they send him to, we'll say, an adult entertainment establishment, and they monitor this. So the moment that this man gets aroused, the exact moment, the device that's measuring the electrical activity in the cells spikes, just goes bizarre in the exact instant. They're separated by who knows how many thousands of miles. So the point here is that information does not travel. It simply is. It's in quantum physics, it's what they call a quantum leap, right? Where electrons in your whole body right now is quantum leaping all over the place. Like you have 7 trillion cells, and in those cells are atoms, and around the nucleus of those atoms are electrons, which with the influx or expulsion of energy, those electrons are changing orbits. They're in orbit around the nucleus, right, of the atom, and then they jump. If you saw the movie Jumpers, it's just like that. Like I'm here one moment, and then poof, on top of a pyramid in Egypt, but I didn't travel the space in between, and that's what's fascinating. That's what a quantum leap is, right? So everything, when reduced down to its most fundamental element, is a boundless vibrating field of energy. Your hair follicles, your glasses, this pen, the sound, the vibration that my vocal cords are making. Okay, everything, when reduced down to its most fundamental element, is called a quark, which is just simply a boundless vibrating energy field. It's the same with your thoughts. Okay, your thoughts are energy, and they're being emitted. There's a device that measures your emission. It's called an electroencephalograph, and it measures the wavelengths of your thinking. It measures the energetic expulsion that you are expressing or broadcasting, literally, with your thoughts. So your thoughts are instantly accessible across space-time. Okay, so every thought is another favorite mantra is we are always either purifying or polluting the universe with our thinking. Right. So if you've ever had the experience, and I know we've all had this. So it's like, say you're driving in a car, and you're at a red light, and you see the license plate in front of you has some initials on it, and you're like, oh, GB. Oh my gosh, it's like Gene. That's my initials of my buddy Gene Borg, my college buddy. I haven't seen him in so long. I wonder how he's doing. And then suddenly, your phone rings, right? And guess who it is? Gene, right? And you go, oh my, dude, you're not going to believe this. I swear, the second before this phone rang, I was just thinking to myself, I wonder how you're doing, because the car in front of me has your initials. Dude, this is trippy. So the deal with that is it's not really so trippy. It's no more trippy than like, all right, watch what happens. I'm going to let this go, and I'm predicting it's going to, right? That's gravity. We get that. Okay, those are events that are coinciding. The word coincidence is actually pretty cool, but it's become bastardized over time, because over time it's taken on this connotation that it's weird or bizarre. Like I let it go by laws of the universe. It's just what happens. Those are two coinciding events. I let go, it falls. Those are coinciding events. Well, so was me thinking about my buddy and then him calling me. Okay, those are coinciding events. We co-created that. Okay, so pay attention to the synchronicities or these coincidences in your life, and be intrigued by them. Become curious and ask yourself, so what was I? How did I co-created this somehow? Let's really appreciate the power of the energetics of my thinking. Okay, and get curious about it. What was I doing? Because how handy would that be? If we could harness that, we wouldn't need this. I could just communicate with you through thought. And maybe that's where we're going. All right, so synchronicity. Okay, big idea number 6, the letter P we'll have it stand for peace. One of my favorite definitions of enlightenment is the ability to choose peace amidst chaos. I learned from Wayne Dyer, I think it was his PBS show, which was I think he just read a book about Inspired or something like that. And I think he's got a lot of kids. And he told the story where he's driving they're all in a Suburban, and there's like 7 kids in there, and they're all, going berserk. And he's driving, he's just like, bah! So he put a Post-it note on his dashboard that said, I can choose peace rather than this. And the this is, of course, like chaos or frustration or annoyance or whatever it is. So that's a great mantra. So use it. Use it whenever you notice yourself feeling uncool. You know what? I can choose peace rather than this. And the operative word, of course, in the mantra is choose. Right? That's the beauty of it, is you actually chose to be irritated. He chose to interpret his kid's noise or rambunctiousness as irritable or as irritating. He chose that interpretation, right? And that's really the crux of the ownership mentality, which has you be powerful and creative. So I can choose peace rather than this. And much like in the first big idea, which is about being, I was saying that you don't need to do anything in order to feel joy. It was the same thing. You don't need to do anything in order to experience peace. Just choose it. Just choose that. Okay, big idea number 7. The letter I is intention. And it's very similar to the synchronicity that we were talking about a second ago. Buddha said your life unfolds according to the way that you think. Everything in your life originates with your thinking, right? So let's trust the power of those thoughts and intentions. There's a phrase, inherent within your desires are the mechanics for their own fulfillment. Inherent within your desires are the mechanics for their own fulfillment. A simple way of saying that is the how is in the what. Right? So in other words, what I want, how am I going to manifest that? Well, the how, the mechanics of that are inherent already within the desire. And let me tell you a story. You may, if you've seen other courses of mine, you may have heard this story before. I use it always. I use it in every talk that I give. I'm always referring to it in my coaching sessions. I have a nephew named Benny. When he was a little kid, before he was even walking yet, before he could even stand up, I was back visiting my sister in New Jersey. I was watching an Eagles game. It was a Sunday. Isn't it funny when I talk about going home, my accent comes out? It was a Sunday. I was going down the shore, going to get a cheesesteak. So I'm at my sister's house, and my keys, I tossed my keys up on top of the mantle over the fireplace, right? And she yells from the kitchen, "Hey, Chris, Benny's crawling in. Would you keep your eye on him?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I got him. Yeah, I got him." So he must have seen my keys across the room, and because they were sitting underneath like a little recessed light, so they were glistening. And what happened next is the point of this whole story. It's fascinating. What happened next is as powerful as any of us could ever be. What happened next is he started crawling towards them. He started moving towards. Okay, we're going to reference that. That's another mantra. Keep that. Move towards. He started motoring towards these keys that are 5 feet off the ground. The kid can't even stand up yet. Even if he did, that'd be 2.5 times how tall he is. How's he going to get? How is he going to get the keys? Right? He didn't have that question. He didn't have any hesitation. He hadn't learned to do that yet. He didn't learn to wait. He didn't learn to hesitate. Right? He didn't learn to ask. He hasn't learned yet to go, "Oh, those would be cool. How the hell am I going to pull that off? How's that going to work? How's it going to happen?" He simply had the intent. The intent was, cool thing. Let's go. He moved towards. Now I see him crawling towards this brick fireplace, so I'll keep my eye on him because I don't want to like hit his mouth or something. And he gets over there and he's looking up and he's making like little noises. And I'm like, dude, what is it that you? Oh, I get up out of my chair and I grab the keys. I do all the work and I drop them on the floor and he's checking it out. He manifested his desire with virtual, effortless ease. I did all the work. He simply had the intent. And he didn't even know he had the intent. He simply had a desire, right? So inherent within your intentions are the mechanics for their own fulfillment. The mechanics of him getting the keys were activated by him moving towards. The mechanics were me, Uncle Chris, getting up off his ass and handing him the keys. Those are the mechanics which he activated by responding to his intention, right? By moving towards. So intent, move towards. Intent, move towards. Trust the organizing intelligence inherent within that. All right. Big idea number 8, relationship, letter R, relationship. So now, and I'm not even necessarily referring only to human relationships. I'm talking about our relationship to the entire universe, our relationship to all that is. The single source of all human suffering is the illusion of the separate self. And this is pretty fascinating stuff. The parietal lobes, okay, the brain on the sides over here, they, among other things, one of their functions is that they permit us to do spatial relationships, okay? We can judge, like, I know the distance between me and my computer, right, and the edge of my desk, so I don't walk into it. I know when to sit down because I know where the edge of the chair is, right, which has me be able to function in the physical world. Okay, it's very handy. However, what comes with that, though, is it reinforces the illusion of the separate self. In other words, and I say it's an illusion, that I'm separate from the rest of the world, that I'm alone. I'm an entity that is isolated, and I'm not this pen. But interestingly, again, if we refer back to quantum physics, what these scientists show is that fundamentally, if everything's reduced, this, my breath, to its most fundamental level, all it is energy. Everything is energy, localized into different physical forms. Some of it's localized into this skin encapsulated ego we call CD. Some of it's localized into my computer mouse. Some of it's localized into the air, right? But everything, when reduced down to its most fundamental elements, all is energy. We are all the same. We are all inextricably, instantly and inextricably connected. The ancient seers, like the rishis, I believe, said, I am that, you are that, all this is that, and that's all there is. It's just kind of fun. So here's a practice for recognizing sameness and connectedness, which I'll tell you, imagine what would the world be like if everyone was intentionally practicing acknowledging our sameness. Wouldn't that be fascinating? That's where we're going. That's where we're going. And the more that we heighten our awakened spirit, that's the program. That's what's going to be happening. It's just going to be joy and celebration, compassion, service. It's going to be perfect. That's our direction right now. That's our trajectory. So Tat Tavam Asi. Tat Tavam Asi is a Sanskrit phrase. T-A-T-T-V-A-M-A-S-I. Loosely translated meaning that thou art, or I am that. So here's the practice, okay? So whenever I'm out in the world and I'm noticing myself judging someone, okay, in any way, in a pleasant way or an unpleasant way, I want to notice that and then say to myself, I am that, or Tat Tavam Asi. For example, I see a kid, there's an old lady walking out of the grocery store with her cart, and she's got her change in her hand, she's pushing the cart, she drops like a $20 bill. And I see that, and I'm walking in the store, I'm far away though, kid comes running up, right, and I'm thinking, oh man, that little punk's gonna steal her money, that ain't right. And he picks it up and he runs over to her and like quietly, secretively, like tucks it into her purse, and she didn't even know it. So it's just this like totally selfless act of service and compassion. So I judged him one way and I judged him another. Now I'm judging him as, oh my God, that kid's totally cool. That's amazing. I love that kid. And like he doesn't even want the recognition. So here I am judging him in a lovely way now, right? So what I want to do is go, okay, I am that. I contain the seeds of all that I just saw, like of selfishness and of compassion and everything else. I couldn't even observe that. All relationship is a mirror, okay? All relationship is mirroring back to you. All right. So whatever, you can't even see what you don't contain the seeds of. So I contain the seeds of a little thief. I contain the seeds of a saint. I contain it all. Right. It's what do I want to activate? Right. What do I want to activate? So Tat Tavam Asi, catch yourself and say, I am that. Let's practice recognizing sameness, right, and connectedness, because we all are inextricably connected. Okay. Big idea number nine is impermanence, right? The second letter I. We'll have that stand for impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. It's the nature of the universe. Everything is evolving, is coming into being and going out of being, right? Everything is decaying. We are born and we die. So we have two options, okay? Option A is be cool with that, right? To celebrate that, to appreciate how perfect that is. Right. Option B is to have a problem with it, right? So naturally, the intelligent option is option A. So let's talk about death just for a second, okay? Because a lot of people have really bad stories about this event that we refer to as death, which I actually refer to as transcending physical form, or returning to the non-local realm, or spirit form, returning to spirit form. And I changed that. It wasn't always that way. It was fascinating. I'll just give you the brief synopsis of this story of why my definition and my interpretation of the event that we refer to as death, how it changed. My good buddy Alex died. He was only 20. He was a client of mine, but he was like a little brother. I loved this kid. And he was a total punk, part of why he's completely irreverent. It's awesome. He would come totally inappropriately dressed to our appointments. But anyway, he was a race car driver, and he died. He died one night as an accidental overdose. And I found out the next morning because we had an appointment scheduled, and his mom called me and told me that Alex isn't going to make it. And I was like, oh, God, what did he do now? And she said he died. I promise you I'm not exaggerating. From that moment, for the next 4 days, I was dysfunctional. I was rendered useless. That information, the way I interpreted that information had me be almost literally paralyzed. I canceled all my appointments for the week. That was a Monday morning. I didn't shower or shaved. I was literally on the floor right here. I was sitting in this chair when I got that information. And I was in the fetal position over here on my floor, my office floor. And I was like that for like 4 days until his funeral service, which was it was hilarious. It snapped me out of it because it was funny. It was like the most irreverent and funny. It was a funny funeral service. And I snapped out. I was like, man, how fascinating my response. Like, where is that coming from? So I examined my beliefs on death and I've redefined them. Or you could just say impermanence, on the impermanence of life, of our lives. And I've completely redefined death for me. And I won't even necessarily get into that. Well, just to say this, that actually now my belief is it's like the law of thermodynamics, I think is the second one, which is that energy is not created nor destroyed. It's just changes form. So since we are at the most fundamental level, all we are is energy. The skin encapsulated ego, the body dies, okay? But the spirit can't. It just changes form. It returns back to the non-local realm. That's my definition. I'm not selling that either. I'm just using it as an example that you can redefine all your stories, and all of them, okay, about death or anything else in life and the universe. What you can't argue is that everything's impermanent. So the question is, how do you want to story that? Story it in a way that serves you. All right, solamente uno más. Big idea number 10, the letter T, trust. This universe has been unfolding for 15 billion years with flawless choreography. No errors, no mistakes. In one of the other courses, I don't remember which one, I think it had something about a miraculous life. I get into the details of that, of how, like, mathematically speaking, statistically, how everything is a statistical impossibility, not an improbability. It's like an incomprehensible improbability. The odds of any of this, of you happening, is 1 in 10 to the 2.7 millionth power. What? So, given the fact that for 15 billion years there's never been a mistake, you could probably just go settle down a little bit. You can probably make, go ahead and like stop worrying about anything ever. So here's another phrase, another mantra. Everything is unfolding exactly as it should. That was on my dashboard actually for 2 years because I had a really devastating breakup. It wasn't devastating. I was interpreting it as devastating. And I did that continuously for a while. So this mantra really helped me to elevate my state and to reinterpret that outcome in a way that actually started serving me, right? When I started trusting the timing of that, when I started trusting that this is everything has always been unfolding with perfect timing. So how could there be a problem here? Now, when I'm capable of doing that, now I can leverage the experience, okay? So every single outcome, every event that ever occurs, everything without exception is an opportunity that you can leverage, right? That you, if interpreted appropriately, if interpreted masterfully, if interpreted in a lighthearted way, in an inspired way, or in spirit, can actually serve you, will have you grow or gain or benefit. Okay. So there's some big ideas on how to accelerate the rate at which we are all collectively approaching the consciousness tipping point. How to be so much again for visiting my course. I hope you found it valuable, and I hope to see you in another one soon. Chris Dorris out.